Welcome to this series preview media availability edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Today is Thursday, May 11th, 2023. Indiana is in second place, 2 games ahead of the visiting Boilermakers, who match up with the Hoosiers in a 3-game series starting Friday. Purdue is 5-1 so far on Fridays in the Big Ten, while Indiana is only 2-4 to open league series. The media met with senior shortstop Phillip and head coach Jeff Mercer on Thursday to discuss this and preview the series.
Phil, you're kind of a veteran leader on this relatively young team. What does a weekend like this, senior weekend, mean to you?
It means a lot, but the biggest thing for our guys is, it's just another weekend. We just got to go out there, play like we have, throughout the whole year and not put any extra pressure on ourselves.
The way you guys have played after Maryland, the way you bounced back strong, kind of talk about the way you bounced back and you're still in position to win the Big Ten.
Right, so it's a long season, and, telling all the guys, you're going to have a bump in the road eventually, and that was kind of ours. So the biggest thing is responding, not reacting to it. So I think we responded in a really good way by going to Northwestern, winning that series up there, sweeping them, and then going to Xavier yesterday and having a big-time win.
You think it's in the back of players' minds that you guys are only 1 game back from Maryland?
I'm sure guys think about it, but not when we go out there and play. You can only focus on 1 game, and the game on Friday against Purdue is not going to win or lose us the Big Ten on that day. So that's just approaching that every single day.
What kind of challenge do you see the Purdue pitching staff offering to you guys?
Yeah, they're a really good staff. They've thrown really well in Big Ten play. We just gotta. I know the coaches will have a good report for us, and we got to go out there and execute the plan.
The fact that they're a rival, does that add any extra juice or not?
Obviously, it's a rivalry. In-state, and it means a lot to a lot of people. Just the biggest thing is just executing our plan and not trying to do anything extra.
The position player group has somewhat in Big Ten play struggled early on in the series and then gradually gotten better. Have you guys talked much about that? What you can do to kind of get off to a faster start offensively?
Yeah, I think it's just going out executing our plan a little better, being a little mature during our at bats, especially early in the game. You're right, the first couple innings on Friday kind of takes us some time to get going. Just focus on, 1 pitch at a time, understand what the coaches are saying, understand what the pitcher's trying to do to you. And that's just, maturity throughout the season. And, we have got better, and I think we'll just continue to get better.
Kind of going back to the rivalry piece, this being your second year in Bloomington, what kind of grasp do you have on kind of the magnitude of Indiana and Purdue?
Yeah, it means a lot. Obviously, from as an Ohio kid, you didn't grow up around it, but, you come to Indiana last year, it's the football game and then the basketball game and then the baseball. When we went up to Purdue, it was packed last year. So it means a lot to, a lot of people, and, being able to put an Indiana Hoosiers jersey on, you represent about the whole state of Indiana. So just going out there and making sure you play hard for everyone, who supports you and always has your back is, very special for us.
Coach, Fridays have been a little bit of a struggle for your offense in Big Ten play. And Purdue in particular has been pretty strong on the mound on Fridays. Yeah. So kind of what's the game plan? What are you guys really wanting to do to try to get off to a good start on Friday?
Yeah, it's something we talked about kind of today and yesterday as a group collectively, just being able to apply the scouting report in a way that allows us to get off to a good start, or at least be a competitive start. And I don't know, I think sometimes we get a little bit excited and emotional, and we swing out of hand a little bit, or we don't finish at bats, and when you have a younger group but also an experienced group, we're experienced enough to be able to follow a game plan. So we just have to do a better job of finishing at bats and following the plan and not getting emotional in the way that we can play with emotion, but we can't play out of control. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just not being out of control and forcing somebody to make a decision there in that 3rd or 4th inning by having really good bats in the first 2 innings, not kind of waiting until the second time through the order to be able to make an adjustment. So that would be the biggest thing that we have to do, and we're certainly capable of doing it. We need to do it from the very beginning, and being a little bit better at just going in and applying the scouting report and the game plan immediately, and not allowing them to get settled in before we start to make an adjustment.
Are there any confirmed starters for the rotation this weekend?
Yeah, we'll go Sonard on Friday, and then TBD the rest of the weekend, which I think what they're doing as well. But a lot of it depends on what the weather ends up doing, and we don't want to put Luke in a position where we get tagged with a couple delays and whatnot. So that would be the only thing, is if somehow we ended up if we have to push the game back, whatever it is. But if we're all straight up and everything's square, we would go Sonard on Friday, keep him on schedule for going Thursday, and then get him back hopefully for the Big Ten tournament there on that Wednesday.
I would imagine that Matt Ellis's injury situation hasn't really changed much, but what is his, I guess, day-to-day with the team like? What is he still like around the guys?
He's been great. We've traveled, so it's been a little bit harder for him to be as involved just with the Big Ten travel roster limitations. But he's been great. He's in there working. He's with the guys, and he's such a jovial personality and fun-loving, and so he's still engaged. He's still in there working on his catching and doing all that different stuff. So he's great. He's a great resource for the guys, and but no, he's the same. He's the big, the big teddy bear that everybody loves, and he's still the same guy every day. And obviously, you feel for him and kind of what he's going through. But at the same time, you get to choose your attitude, and he's chosen a really good one.
This is a senior class of guys that you brought in 3 or 4 years ago, and also some guys who have transferred in. What has this class meant to you guys this year?
Well, it's really given us a foundation of leadership to be able to help build with those young guys around them. And you look at, that Bobby and Glasser, in particular there with those guys where they've really given you a ton of just experience. Glasser was a 3-year starter at Youngstown, and Bobby transferred in from Louisville during that freshman year, but so Glasser gives you some immediate on-field presence and experience, and then Bobby is really kind of the heartbeat of the group, where the attitude, the effort, the accountability, those things where they've given you a lot, where the young guys can then do it like that, work like that, and so they've really kind of helped to help create and shape the culture of the team today. What do we want it to be about? What are the things that we value, and their personality is really what we value, and so that's been just a great blessing from those guys. So I'll give it to them as well as the other guys in that group as well. So I think they've been really good players. Statistics are great, but statistics can be a bit misleading from impact. Just because a guy hits well or has a number or a stat line that's positive, it doesn't mean that his impact is as positive. And for those guys, I would say their stats are underwhelming compared to what their actual personal impact on the program has been, as far as leadership and attitude and all the things that we really value behind the scenes. That it's like the rising tide lifts all boats, right? They raise the floor of the program by making everyone else around them better. And I was talking to Glasser on the bus ride back last night, and just talk about program building and culture building and how, what we've gone through the last few years, and just talking to him about his presence especially will be felt for years to come, because he helps to teach guys like Tyler Cerny and Brock Tibbetts and Josh Pine how to play infield, and then they'll teach the next group of guys. The next group of guys will teach that, and so you just build on top of each other when you have players like that are so good, but also they're good because of how they operate, and that part is just a ripple effect. It just ripples out forever and ever.
What was it about Phillip that made you recruit him, bring him in?
So he was at Youngstown, and so I had known him because he was in the Horizon League. I didn't coach against him, but I'd seen his name a lot. And Coach Weatherford was at Wright State when he was at Youngstown. They had played against each other, and then he had coached against him. And just his attitude, when Zach came in, he kind of talked about Glasser would have been a great Raider, right? And that's how we would always kind of evaluate guys when I was at Wright State. It's like, what do you make a great Raider? Would he like the weight room? Would he invest in his off-field stuff? Was he competitive? Was he heady, intelligent? Did he have the aptitude? And then, was he tough enough to hold somebody else accountable when they needed their chops busted? And that's what Zach had said when he first came in. It was like, this guy would have been a great Raider. Coach Simmons had recruited him a little bit at when he was at Kent State, so he knew him. So Derek and Phil had a relationship prior to, and then Phil had a lot of respect for the program that we had at Wright State, just being in the league, and when I was there. So there was kind of a kindred spirit when we began the recruiting process, and just talking to him on the phone and what he valued. He just wanted to be the best player he could be, and that's always when you talk to guys, and you ask him. I was asking like, what are your goals and aspirations? And some guys will say, I want to I want to have a good experience. I want to have fun, and that's fine. Like, that's all well and good. We can do those things. But when a guy says, I want to play Major League Baseball and I want to win a championship, and I really value my degree tremendously, those are kind of buzzwords that really attract you to a guy pretty quickly. And then you ask him, okay, so what have you done? Tell me about your routine, and you kind of get a laissez-faire answer from a lot of guys, and they'll talk to you about Well, I do a little bit of T work and I do this and that. When a guy starts to talk to you about his mobility routine and his ankle mobility and starts talking about his diet and nutrition and all the stuff he does with his swing and starts sending you video and then I get a Zoom call with him and you really get a feel for a guy that he's going to be as serious about this as you expect him to be. And that was Phillip. Phillip is obsessive compulsive with his development. He is as motivated and engaged as I've ever seen a player. He's probably the most well-developed player that I've ever coached as far as what God gave him as to the player that he's become. He's probably the best player in that regard that I've ever been around. And because of that, it's easy for him to hold guys around him accountable. And it's easy for me to hold guys accountable when you have a guy that works like that and that plays that way every day. So we attracted really early on in the recruiting process, and Phillip was as highly sought of a recruit as there was in the portal. It offers to go to every power conference across the country, in the South or out West, and we connected. And I told him at the time, we're going to go into a kind of a youth movement, and we're going to build it this way. And I really would like for you to be, along with Tyler Dones at the time, kind of great leaders and show these guys how to work, show them how to prepare. They don't know anything. They won't know anything. They'll just know what you give them. And are you willing to do that? Understand there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, but what we build will be our own. And when we have success, it'll be something that we did, not something that you necessarily, had to have passed down forever, right? It's going to be a whole new group. It'll be a bunch of young guys, and you'll get to have the satisfaction of knowing that you did it together. And for certain guys, that's very exciting. They love to be the architect. They like the leadership. They like the responsibility, and they want to do something that's unique. And for some guys, that's not what they want to do, and that's no problem. But I think you have to be honest with a guy up front about what you're getting yourself into. And then on the backside of it is you can promise them that you'll be as invested in their career as they are. So you're going to have a strength coach that's capable and invested. And yes. Do you have a trainer? Do you have a manager program? Do you have assistant coaches? Do you have an administration? Are you going to be able to help them become the player that they want to be, so when they go to pro ball that they're capable of succeeding? And so that's what you have to deliver. So if they deliver the on-field production and the behind-the-scenes locker room leadership, and they invest into that, then you have to invest into them and help them be the player that they want to be. And if you look at Phillip, he's become a much better player. He's a much better player today than he was last year. You look at how much more range he has defensively. You look at his arm strength, his twitch, his explosiveness across the board. You look at his ability to really, really hit to all fields. There's more walks than strikeouts. He's a better offensive player than he was last year. Hits for more power. Has stolen a few more bases. Just he's a better player across the board in every way. And when he goes to pro ball, and if they need him to stay on the left side, like you can legitimately look at him and say this guy can stay on the left side for a couple of years in minor league baseball. And whether he does in the long run, I don't know, but he could stay there for a while, and that was our responsibility to him. So it's got to be a mutually beneficial relationship and a give and take. But it was pretty apparent early on that we were kindred spirits in that way, and he's truly one of my all-time favorite players to be around. I hope we get to play together for another 6 to 8 weeks, but it'll be a really tough day when we're not on the same field together anymore. Although I'll always be his biggest fan in the world.
Either with an individual player or multiple players, what has been your favorite moment this year with the senior class?
I don't take that question lightly, so I got to make sure I can.
No problem.
I would say, early on when we beat Auburn and we beat Texas, and last year we struggled early, and you're trying to get them to help them to believe that we can play at that level, and by going and playing those teams and competing at that level, you're putting yourself out there, especially early. I mean, it's a high risk, high reward proposition, and having those guys believe in the vision and having those guys invest into it, and then to be able to accomplish it. You go and you win on that stage, and you compete, and you can see just the excitement and the joy in their faces when they realize that what they're capable of and what the program and team is capable of. You beat Louisville in a home game for the first time in several years, and that was a big moment for those guys. Again, just the satisfaction and gratification of knowing what they're capable of doing. I think probably a couple of those wins, but I think it speaks to a broader underlying theme of just the belief in just the gratification of all the hard work and all the investment of a vision and a plan that we can do this together and we can succeed at a high level, and we don't have to settle for second fiddle, right? We can go and do this, but we have to do it together, and it's going to be really, really hard. I think that's probably what I enjoy the most about that group of guys, and then seeing them go and achieve it. And whatever we do the last couple of weeks here, we've done a great job this year, and we've really achieved at a high level, especially some of the injuries you have, and you just have to keep persevering and keep pushing through it and manage it, and they've done that, and I'm really, really, really grateful. But I'm also really happy for them that Phillip last year, I asked him last night, I said, what's the most games you've ever had on a team before you ever won? He said 32. I said, well, we beat your record, right? So he gets to be on a winning team, and he gets to be a part of a winning culture, and he deserves that, as well as the other guys do.
There's a lot really coming together this weekend. The seniors number out there, Scott Rowland's numbers out there, Purdue's in town. What kind of magnitude does this weekend carry for you?
Well, Scott's my friend, so I'm really happy that we get to celebrate him, because you have to arm wrestle him, which you would lose in a literal sense, but you have to arm wrestle him to ever have him receive any attention and those things. So yeah, as a friend, I'm happy that we get to celebrate him, and then anytime Indiana plays Purdue, it's always going to be contentious and heated. But every Big Ten weekend is going to be that way. So our just as boring and mundane of a theme as you can be is you just try to win Friday, and then move forward. And we're in a position now where we're where we want to be, we're where we need to be at, and you just try to steal one game at a time, and just kind of make sure. I try not to get too high with them and get too low with them, because there's going to be times where the emotions run high regardless, and you're just trying to keep them in the middle. So that'll kind of be my goal, is just hang in there, right? Hang on for dear life, and just try to go win on Friday and get to Saturday and then move forward. So I know that's super boring, but it's how you succeed, right? Because you just can't live and die on it. It's just the games are too hard, the teams are too good, there's too much emotion. You can't. Every time we try to play better, we play considerably worse, right? And so you just have to go try to do the same things, and we're learning that. And then the way that we've kind of responded the last week or 10 days, and we're growing up, and so now we have another chance to go out there and just play well, just do our job.
Ryan Kraft basically kind of started at Northwestern.
Yeah.
As sort of the weeks wrap up, how likely is it that he could be added to the rotation for not only these last few series, but also as one of sort of the two frontmen in the Big Ten tournament?
He very easily could. It just a couple things. If I can set him up better, it makes it easier for him to have success. And so if you don't tell him he's starting, they don't know he's pitching, even if I plan on him pitching 6 or 7 innings. So if I throw a righty to start and they stack their lefties, and then all of a sudden you make them move their rotation, their lineup around, and then anytime you go, especially if you go from like a 4-seam righty to a sinker ball lefty, and they practice on the spin ball machine all week trying to hit a 4-seam fastball, and it's like, never mind, here comes a sinker ball lefty, and so you can like pave the road for him to go have a really successful outing. I don't think you ever look at a guy and say he's going to go 7 1/3 or 8, right? You're looking at, okay, can he get us through 5? Well, if you're going to have to cover 6 and 7 either way, then why don't you just cover him up front, and then really kind of clear the deck for him and put him in the most advantageous position. And if you do that, he might get to go 6 or 7, because now they have to move their lineup around. They don't have a pinch hitter to go back to later in the game. Maybe they don't have a defensive replacement. Whatever it is, they have to usually get 3 to 6 outs. Maybe 6 outs is a little bit long, but at least 3 or 4 outs of just I'm adjusting, right? I'm adjusting to the new guy, and now instead of 5, it's 6. So he very easily could, and we may end up being put in a position where we need to do that. But I would rather him not spend 48 hours on the spin ball or hack attack, hitting sinkers and doing all that stuff, and watching his video. It's kind of like, hey, they're going to go to this guy or this guy or this guy, and then you give him a little bit of length, and we need that. Just to be honest, we need that. So using him wisely is really imperative to our success, and giving somebody 48 hours to prepare doesn't do us any favors. So I've tried not to do that. If we need to, we will, but I'll try my best not to do that, to be honest.
Not to announce that he's going.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's like, what if you're in the fifth inning of tomorrow's game, and Luke's out of pitches, and we're up by 4 runs in the fifth inning, and for whatever reason, Luke's had 90 pitches, he rolls his ankle, it's like we're up by 4 runs. Well, like, we need to win tomorrow's game tomorrow. Like, just go win the game, and if he's your best guy, you go win tomorrow, and then we'll worry about Saturday on Saturday. And so it's nice to have that kind of security blanket on the backside to know that you can roll out one of the best pitchers in the Big Ten and just win today's game right now, and that gives you one more opportunity, and then you're just gonna have to trust your offense. And by the time, but we've done that where we've just trusted our offense to win Sunday's game, and multiple times we scored 16 runs at Illinois and 22 runs at Penn State, and if we can force somebody else's hand early, now they have to make a decision: do they punt or do they go to their main arms? And I'm just going to trust our offense on Sunday. So I think our offense is going to be good enough to win the majority of Sunday games, and if we have to just make sure we win one, you make sure you win one, and you go and do that.
Phil mentioned that this Purdue pitching staff has really kind of rounded into shape in the conference. What kind of challenges do you anticipate them offering for your guys?
Well, they've got a couple of talented guys, and they're gonna do what every Big Ten pitching staff does. The Stevens kid's gonna be big and throw hard, and he's gonna be competitive. So it's just like, can we adjust, or do we take 2 or 3 innings to adjust, right? And so they're not going to invent a new pitch in the next 24 hours. So it really is just, if it's a 4-seam guy, you got to find him out. If it's a sinker, we got to get him up. If it's a heavy dominant spin guy, you're going to have to make him lane to first strike. It's the same principles. It's just in when you're in conference games, the stuff's a little bit better, and then they're able to move from stuff to stuff more quickly, and so then you have to adjust faster. And that's where, when we've been good, we've been able to adjust quickly, and when we haven't. And that comes with being, just my opinion when I see this and I get frustrated, is either we play emotionally, and so we swing at 3-1 pitches over our head, or we don't take ball 4 on a full count with a breaking ball because I want to get this hit so bad, I want to do this so badly that I end up doing something outside of my game plan. Or we get a lead, and then we kind of like, well, we got the game won because we've got Foley and Reisdorfer and Kraft and those guys, and then we have to extend them. And that's when I get frustrated, is like, why don't we just run away with this thing, and we don't have to use one of our 2 or 3 closers that we could use for another day. And again, trying to explain that to the group and help them to understand that. And when when we lost at Maryland, we really lost the Maryland series in many ways because we were really poor on Friday offensively, and so we never could stack those guys up, and we never got a chance to run it. And so now you're in a position where you can cover 6 or 7 innings pretty comfortably, and then they'd run away in the 8th and 9th. And so if we were able to be better offensively on Friday, we could stack it up and do better. But you live and learn. And before the Maryland series, we'd won, 10 of 11. So it's a little bit hard sometimes. I get on them, I bust their chops, but it's like, Coach, we won 8 in a row. It's like, I know, but we could be better, right? And sometimes that's harder. And so I don't want to lose. I want to win every game that we can, but sometimes a loss can help to drive home a point. You hate to say I told you so, but sometimes you got to walk in and say I told you so. And so that's always a double-edged sword, right? Double-edged sword. So, and a lot of those guys, they haven't seen it, and they don't know, and so that's the fun of it. That's the problem solving of it, and so now we just, these last 2 weeks, we have to be good mentally. The more fundamental team, and the more the team that can concentrate the best, the longest. Those are the teams. When everyone's good now, those are the teams that have the most success late, and we have the capability of doing that. We just have to. We have to be engaged.
The last outfield position, you've made some changes lately. You had Mercer play yesterday. Yeah. Where are you at with that right now?
Hunter was just dinged up. He had that collision in the outfield, and so he cleared all protocols today. So Hunter will be back out there this weekend. So he's starting to play better. Hunter has been, and so he's. We need everybody to go, but he's a guy that we need to go. Like, he needs to go for us to have a chance to go make a run a little bit here. And he's capable of doing that. He had good at-bats today and live at-bats, and had a good work morning this morning. And so he's fully capable. He was our offensive MVP last year. He's had an injury or two, and He's made a few swing adjustments, but he's playing his best right now that he has in a long time. So he'll be back in there this weekend. He's cleared and healthy, and he needs to go for us.
With the team being player-led, also a lot of vocal guys on the team, and with Purdue coming into town, what have you sort of overheard from those players of what they've been saying leading up to the series, and from who, if you can remember?
Well, honestly, not much yet. Just because I didn't belabor the point with Xavier yesterday, but they understood. They're not naive to the fact that how big of a game that is and why we're doing it. So that really they were incredibly focused on that, and there really wasn't any Purdue conversation. I really hasn't been one yet. Even today, we had a meeting today with a topic. We usually have a topic on Thursdays, and had someone come in and talk, and so it was good. And so I would imagine the focus will turn more so tonight, just because Xavier's a good team, but Xavier's a tough scout, right? They've got like 5 first and third plays. They're safetying everybody. They bunt the guy with third base with 2 outs, and they ran a back pick at first base with the first and second. Now they threw it away, but you got to scout that stuff, and so you got to know those things going into it. And if you overlook that, then you lose you might as well not play them. I mean, if you go into that unprepared, and so a lot of like today, this morning, Coach Glant did a lot of scouting report stuff today. So we'll spend more time kind of transitioning into Purdue today. I don't want to say that I don't know much about them, but I'll know a lot more by 1 o'clock tomorrow than I know right now. I know they've played well in the league, and I know that the Stevens kid's has been good, and he's been competitive on Fridays for him. He's won 3 or 4 Fridays. So, but yeah, when you're at Indiana, anytime you're playing Purdue, it's not real hard to get people fired up to play. Just like when you're playing Louisville, it's not real hard to get guys fired up. So my job won't be getting them fired up. My job will be just to be under control and be focused and do your job and that kind of stuff. And so, we had a chance a couple weeks ago, and everybody was really fired up, and we didn't play very well. So we need to learn our lesson and not get out of control with our emotions and be more concise with it. So experience is the best teacher, and so we need to go out and use that experience to our benefit. But they'll be fired up. They'll be ready to run through a wall, and especially you go there last year and you get drilled on Friday, then you win the second game, and then you lose 16-15 or whatever it was. And I don't have to remind them; they lived it too. So they'll be ready to play.
We'll take 2 more.
Would you say that the guys were a little over excited for that Maryland series?
Yeah, I would say that would probably be an accurate assessment. They were fired up. They were ready. They were excited, and then things got off to not a great start, and got emotional, and then you could see the body language, just some things that we don't do, right? And then you put yourself, when you're playing. That's what I told them. When you're playing really good teams and you play emotionally, and they're playing really well, if you do silly stuff on Friday, you set yourself up for a long weekend. And now all of a sudden they got a little bit of mojo, and I've never seen a team hit like that my whole life. So they get a little bit of mojo, and their Saturday starter, the freshman, I was joking with Rob Vaughn, and Rob's a great coach and a great friend, and I said the McCoy kid was incredible. He said, yeah, that was his best outing ever. And I said, I was really glad I was here to see that. I only get once at that, you know what I mean? I would have hated to have missed that. So, but he did. He was great. So then you get him cooking and you get him rolling, and it's just you have to get out as well as you can. Try to get off to a good start. And sometimes, the Saturday game at Northwestern, they had a big freshman lefty that was 92-95 and was great. And we had 8 or 9 lineouts there from like the 3rd to the 6th, and it was like, goodness gracious, we're actually playing well. Because that's always a possibility, and that's what you try to tell the guys. It's always a possibility that you play well and it doesn't matter. Baseball is the silliest game. If you play really well in basketball, you win. If you play really well in football, you win. If you play really well in baseball, you get beat 2-0. It's like, how in the world did this happen? And we were able to hang in there and find a way to win that game. But that's what you try to tell them. We can do everything right and still lose in this game. If you do everything wrong, you're almost assured to lose. And so we just have to do a better job now that we've been through that once of how do we apply that lesson learned and just go play this end game. We didn't do anything different from a strategy standpoint. We didn't do anything different from a matchup standpoint that weekend. We just played a really, really good team who was playing really well, and we didn't play well. We were emotional and young. Like I said that night, we showed our youth. Okay, now it's time to grow up. If you do it once, everyone's, me as a coach, it's like, all right, you do it again, and you're like, well, shame on you, right? Shame on you for not learning that lesson. I don't think we will. We may lose, but I think we'll play fine, and we'll be in a good headspace as we go into it.
That concludes this media availability edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Indiana and Purdue first pitch on Friday, weather permitting, will be at 6 p.m. See you at the BART.